Maya Reynolds stares at the airline CEO across the boardroom table, her newly acquired company ownership papers in hand. The same man who had her dragged off his plane yesterday now sweats profusely as she announces, "Today isn't about revenge, it's about transformation." Before we dive into this incredible story, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. If this opening grabbed your attention, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of story lovers. Now let's rewind 24 hours to see how Maya Reynolds went from being humiliated in front of an entire plane to owning the airline that wronged her. The Atlanta International Airport buzzed with activity as Maya Reynolds strode purposefully through the terminal. At 37, she carried herself with the confidence earned from building Reynolds Security Solutions, from a small startup to one of the most respected cybersecurity firms in the country. Her charcoal Armani suit was impeccable, her leather briefcase containing contracts worth millions, and the exhaustion behind her eyes was the only hint of the 70-hour week she had just completed. Flight 2887 to San Francisco would give her 6 precious hours to prepare for tomorrow's crucial investor meeting. Maya had booked her first-class ticket 3 months in advance, ensuring she would have the space and quiet needed to finalize her presentation. Boarding for Skystar. Airline's Flight 2887 to San Francisco will begin momentarily, announced the gate agent. We'll start with our first-class passengers and those needing special assistance. Maya gathered her belongings and approached the gate, boarding pass and platinum membership card in hand. The gate agent smiled, scanned her ticket, and wished her a pleasant flight. Yet the moment Maya stepped onto the aircraft, she sensed something was off. Flight attendant Brenda Wilson was greeting first-class passengers with practiced warmth until her eyes landed on Maya. Her smile faltered, her gaze flicking between Maya's face and her boarding pass. "I'll need to verify your ticket," Brenda said, holding out her hand expectantly. Maya handed over her boarding pass. "Seat 3A by the window." Brenda studied the ticket with unusual scrutiny. "And this is your boarding pass?" "Yes," Maya replied calmly, though confusion began to stir. "I booked it 3 months ago." Behind her, a white businessman in his 50s was welcomed aboard without any verification. Then another, and another. None were asked to show their boarding passes a second time. "There seems to be some confusion about your seat assignment," Brenda said, her voice carrying enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Would you mind stepping aside while I verify this with the gate?" Maya maintained her composure. "My seat is 3A. The boarding pass was just scanned at the gate. There's no confusion." "Ma'am, if you could just cooperate." Brenda's tone hardened, her smile rigid. "We need to make sure everyone is in their proper place." The implications weren't lost on Maya. She'd faced this kind of confusion before. The sudden scrutiny. When she entered spaces others didn't expect to see someone who looked like her. "Is there a problem?" A deep voice interrupted. Captain Richard Whitfield had emerged from the cockpit, his authoritative presence immediately changing the dynamic. "This passenger insists she has a first-class seat," Brenda explained, emphasizing insists as though Maya's claim was dubious. Captain Whitfield gave Maya a once-over, his expression revealing nothing as he took the boarding pass from Brenda. "Ms. Reynolds," he read aloud, "I see the issue. We've had some seat assignment changes. Perhaps you might be more comfortable in our economy section today?" Maya felt her pulse quicken but kept her voice steady. "My ticket is for first class, seat 3A. I paid for that seat, I booked it months in advance, and I would like to sit in the seat I purchased." Other passengers had begun boarding now, creating a bottleneck as the confrontation continued. Among them was Thomas Blackwell, a wealthy tech investor who slowed as he passed, taking in the scene with evident interest. "I understand your frustration, ma'am," Captain Whitfield said, his condescending tone making it clear he didn't understand at all. "But as captain, I need to ensure all passengers are seated appropriately. And what exactly is inappropriate about me sitting in the seat I purchased?" Maya asked, her patience wearing thin. The captain lowered his voice. "Let's not make a scene. I'm offering you a solution." "The solution is to honor my ticket," Maya replied. Whitfield's smile vanished. He nodded to Brenda, then turned to the front of the aircraft. Get security." The words hung in the air. Several passengers looked away uncomfortably. Others stared openly. Thomas Blackwell had stopped completely now, his phone partially raised. "This is unacceptable," Maya stated firmly. "I have a valid ticket for seat 3A. "Ma'am, you'll need to deplane immediately," Brenda announced loudly. "Security has been called." "On what grounds?" Maya demanded, aware that every eye on the plane was now fixed on her. "The captain has determined you're being disruptive," Brenda replied mechanically. Two security officers appeared at the aircraft door minutes later. The humiliation burned through Maya as they approached. "I am not leaving this plane voluntarily," she informed them, her voice calm despite the storm raging within. "I have a valid ticket, and I'm being removed because of what I look like, not what I did." "Ma'am, we can do this the easy way or the hard way," one officer warned. With dignity intact but pride wounded, Maya gathered her belongings. As she was escorted out, whispers and uncomfortable glances followed her down the aisle. Just before reaching the door, she turned to see a late-arriving white businessman being ushered by Brenda to seat 3A, her seat. Thomas Blackwell caught her eye as she passed, his phone now definitively recording. His slight nod communicated, something Maya couldn't quite interpret in the moment. Once outside the gate area, Maya's composed facade cracked just slightly. She pulled out her phone with hands that weren't quite steady and dialed her assistant. "Jordan, I need to reschedule tomorrow's meeting," she said without preamble. "No, I'm still in Atlanta. There's been a situation." She paused, watching through the terminal windows as Flight 287 prepared for departure without her. "Actually, schedule me a meeting with our legal team tomorrow morning instead. And Jordan, pull everything you can find on Skystar Airlines and their ownership structure, every detail." As she ended the call, Maya's focus sharpened through the haze of humiliation. This wasn't just an inconvenience or an insult. It was a mistake. Skystar's mistake, and one they would soon regret profoundly. The evening light cast long shadows across Maya's downtown Atlanta penthouse as she paced barefoot across the hardwood floors. Her shoes had been discarded hours ago, along with her jacket, but her mind remained formally dressed for battle. 3. Computer screens glowed on her home office desk, each displaying different aspects of Skystar Airlines' corporate structure. "William Hartford III, Maya murmured, studying the smiling face of Skystar's CEO. He looked exactly as she had, expected, silver-haired, country club tan, with the confident smile of someone who had inherited his position rather than earned it. Fourth-generation airline executive, Princeton graduate, board member of 6 exclusive golf clubs. Skystar had begun as Hartford Airways in the 1950s, growing from a regional carrier to a national airline through a series of aggressive acquisitions. The company had gone public in the 1980s, but the Hartford family maintained controlling interest through a complex structure of holding companies and preferred stock arrangements. Maya's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Zara Washington. Maya had met Zara in law school before dropping out to launch her tech company. While Maya built security systems, Zara had become one of Atlanta's most formidable corporate attorneys. "Please tell me you've already filed suit against those racists," Zara said without preamble. "Hello to you too," Maya replied, a small smile breaking through her focused expression. "And no, not yet. I'm researching." "What's to research?" "They humiliated you publicly because you're a black woman who dared to sit in first class. Open and shut case of discrimination." "It's not that simple," Maya sighed, switching one of her screens to display Skystar's stock performance. "Filing a discrimination lawsuit would get me an apology and maybe some settlement money. That's not what I want." "What do you want?" "Justice," Maya answered. "The kind that makes sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." "I've seen how Skystar handles these situations," Zara warned. "This isn't their first discrimination complaint. They settle quietly, sign NDAs, promise diversity training, and nothing changes." Maya paused. "You've handled cases against them before?" "Not personally, but I know colleagues who have. Hartford runs that airline like it's still 1955. The company, culture flows from the top, and the fish is rotting from the head." A notification popped up on Maya's phone. It was a social media alert. Someone had tagged her in a post. She opened it to find a video taken from inside the aircraft, showing her confrontation with Brenda and Captain Whitfield, followed by security escorting her off the plane. The post came from Thomas Blackwell's verified account with the caption, "Witnessed blatant racism on Skystar Flight 2887. This accomplished businesswoman was removed from her paid first-class seat for no reason other than her race. Was Skystar explanation needed? Maya Reynolds, you handled this with incredible dignity." The video already had 20,000 views and was climbing rapidly. "Zara, I need to call you back," Maya said, staring at the spreading virtual wildfire. Before she could process this development, her phone rang again. An unknown number. "Maya Reynolds," she answered cautiously. "Ms. Reynolds, this is Alicia Chen from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I've seen the video of your experience on Skystar today, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to tell your side of the story." Maya's mind raced. Public attention wasn't something she had anticipated, but perhaps it could be leveraged. "I appreciate your interest, Ms. Chen, but I need to consider my response carefully. Can I call you back tomorrow?" After ending the call, Maya's phone buzzed again with a text from Jordan. "Have you seen what's happening online? Also found something interesting. Hartford Capital Group, same family as Airline, is trying to raise significant capital. Looks like they're cash-strapped." Maya froze, her gaze shifting between the message and the financial data on her screen. The shape of something larger than a discrimination case began to form in her mind, a strategy that could change everything. She pulled up the market data for Hartford Capital Group. The holding company that controlled Skystar was indeed in the middle of a financing round, seeking substantial investment to shore up their position. Their stock had been declining steadily for 3 quarters. Maya dialed her CFO. "Marcus, how quickly can we liquidate our position in Vertex Technologies? The shares we bought last quarter? Why would we sell now? I need capital available. Immediately." "Maya, it's 11 at night. What's going on?" "Emergency executive meeting, my office, 7 a.m. tomorrow. Tell everyone it's mandatory." She paused, a small smile forming. "And Marcus, bring the acquisition playbook." Maya ended the call and returned to her screens, the humiliation of the afternoon transforming into focused determination. Skystar had made her exit their aircraft, but they had unknowingly opened the door to something much bigger. If William Hartford III thought today was problematic, he had no idea what tomorrow would bring. She opened her email and began composing a message to her legal team, financial advisors, and board members. The subject line read simply, "Operation First Class." The Reynolds Security Solutions headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming tower in Atlanta's business district. By 7 a.m., the main conference room was filled with the company's leadership team, confusion and curiosity evident on their faces as they sipped coffee and exchanged theories about the emergency meeting. Marcus James, the company's CFO, was reviewing financial documents with a furrowed brow when Maya entered the room. The conversations immediately ceased. "Thank you all for coming in early," Maya began, standing at the head of the table then sitting. "Yesterday, I experienced something that was both personally humiliating and professionally enlightening." She recounted the incident on the Skystar flight, her voice matter-of-fact and devoid of the emotion she had felt in the moment. As she spoke, her assistant Jordan displayed the social media response on the main screen. Thomas Blackwell's video had over 2 million views by morning, and Fosser Boycott Skystar was trending nationally. "This is outrageous," said Vivian Chen, the company's chief marketing officer. "We should support you in taking legal action." "I'm not interested in a settlement," Maya replied. "I'm interested in acquisition." The statement landed like a stone in still water, ripples of surprise moving through the room. "Acquisition?" Marcus repeated incredulously. "You want to buy an airline because they were racist to you?" "I want to buy an airline because I've identified a strategic opportunity," Maya corrected. "Skystar's routes align perfectly with our client expansion plans in the western states. Their technology infrastructure is outdated, creating security vulnerabilities we're uniquely positioned to address. And most importantly, their parent company, Hartford Capital Group, is desperately seeking capital infusion to cover significant debt obligations coming due next quarter. She nodded to Jordan, who switched the display to a corporate structure chart. The discrimination I experienced isn't an isolated incident. It's symptomatic of systemic problems within SkyStar's culture, problems that are affecting their bottom line through lawsuits, customer dissatisfaction, and employee turnover. The Hartford family has run this company into the ground while maintaining practices that belong in the last century. Marcus shook his head. Maya, I understand you're angry, but this is a massive diversion of company resources for what feels like a personal vendetta. Is it really wise to risk our company's stability this way? Asked Deanna Foster, the operations director. Let me ask you this, Maya responded, her voice level. If I had come to you with this acquisition target last week, showing you their vulnerable financial position, their strategic route alignment with our growth plans, and the opportunity to acquire a distressed asset at below market value, what would you have said? The room fell silent as her point registered. The personal element doesn't cloud my judgment, it cleared it, Maya continued. SkyStar was already a potential acquisition target on my radar. Yesterday's event simply accelerated my timeline and provided unique leverage. The conference room door opened and Zara Washington entered, carrying a leather portfolio. Sorry I'm late, she announced. Traffic was brutal. Perfect timing, Maya replied. Zara will be handling both our legal strategy and the discrimination suit that will run parallel to our acquisition efforts. Zara took position beside Maya. I've prepared two separate but synchronized approaches. First, a discrimination lawsuit, highlighting SkyStar's pattern of similar incidents. This will create public pressure and potentially impact their stock value. Second, a legal framework for the acquisition process that protects Reynolds security from potential counterattacks by Hartford. The media component is already in motion, Maya added, gesturing to the viral video statistics. SkyStar issued a statement this morning calling the incident a misunderstanding and promising to review their training procedures. The response has only fueled public outrage. On cue, Jordan displayed social media responses to SkyStar's statement, overwhelmingly negative. Another passenger from my flight contacted me this morning, Maya continued. She has footage of the white businessman being seated in my 3A seat after I was removed. 5 other passengers have come forward with statements about witnessing the incident. Marcus still looked skeptical. Even if we wanted to do this, do we have the capital necessary for a controlling interest in a major airline? Not alone, Maya acknowledged. That's why I'm meeting with potential partners this afternoon. In the meantime, I need authorization to begin purchasing available shares through our subsidiary holdings. The discussion continued for another hour, with Maya addressing concerns and outlining contingencies. By the end, even the most hesitant team members were cautiously on board. As the meeting concluded, Maya's phone lit up with a notification. Alicia Chen's article had just been published online. Tech executive removed from first-class seat, discrimination or misunderstanding. Maya had given a carefully crafted interview that morning, appearing reasonable and measured while letting the facts speak for themselves. The article included SkyStar's weak response and noted the company's previous discrimination complaints. By noon, SkyStar's stock had dropped 7%. It's working, Jordan reported, showing Maya the real-time market data. And you've received a message from Thomas Blackwell requesting a meeting. Maya considered this development. Blackwell was a significant player in tech investment circles, with deep pockets and extensive connections. His video had helped catalyze the public response, but his motivations remained unclear. Schedule it, she decided, but at a neutral location. As the day progressed, Maya's team executed the first phase of their strategy, quietly purchasing SkyStar shares through various holdings to avoid triggering reporting requirements. Meanwhile, across town at SkyStar's headquarters, the first signs of internal panic were beginning to show. How would you react if you were in Maya's position? Would you pursue legal action or take control like she's planning? Comment number 1 if you think Maya's acquisition strategy is justified, or number 2 if you think she's going too far. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're impressed by her strategic thinking. What do you think Thomas Blackwell really wants from this situation? Will he turn out to be an ally or a competitor in Maya's quest for justice? Subscribe to find out as this story continues. The Southern Spice, an upscale Atlanta restaurant known for its discretion and private dining rooms, was Maya's chosen location for meeting Thomas Blackwell. She arrived 15 minutes early, selecting a table with a clear view of both the entrance and the emergency exit, a habit from her early days of pitching to skeptical investors. Thomas Blackwell entered precisely on time. At 45, he carried himself with the easy confidence of old money, though Maya knew his wealth was entirely self-made. His reputation in tech investment circles was sterling, brilliant, ethical, and notoriously selective about his partnerships. "Ms. Reynolds," he greeted, extending his hand. "It's good to finally meet you, though I wish it were under better circumstances." "Mr. Blackwell," Maya replied, her handshake firm, "I appreciate your video documentation yesterday. It's been impactful." Once seated, Maya studied him carefully as he ordered a sparkling water. His motivations for helping her remained unclear. Was this genuine allyship, or did he have his own agenda regarding Skystar? "I'll be direct," Maya said after the waiter departed. "Your video was helpful, but I'm curious why a man of your position would involve himself in this situation." Thomas smiled slightly. "Equally direct. I've been tracking Skystar's discriminatory practices for months. Your incident wasn't isolated. It was part of a pattern I've been documenting." "For what purpose?" Thomas paused, seeming to weigh his words carefully. "My daughter Amara experienced something similar on a Skystar flight last year." "Your daughter?" Maya hadn't been aware Thomas Blackwell had children. "Adopted," he clarified. "She's 16, brilliant, and black. We were flying to a science competition she was competing in. Despite our first-class tickets, she was repeatedly questioned and made to feel unwelcome while I was in the restroom. By the time I returned, she was in tears." His expression hardened. "I filed complaints, received form letter apologies, was offered vouchers. Nothing changed. So I began investigating whether this was systematic." Thomas reached for his briefcase and withdrew a tablet. "What I found was troubling." He slid the device across to Maya, displaying a spreadsheet with dozens of incidents documented over the past 18 months, dates, flight numbers, names, and brief descriptions of discriminatory treatment. "Some of these people filed complaints," Thomas explained. "Others vented on social media. Many probably said nothing at all, but the pattern is unmistakable." Maya scrolled through the data, recognizing the familiar contours of institutional discrimination, subtle enough to maintain plausible deniability, pervasive enough to constitute policy and practice. "This is compelling," she admitted. "But why share it with me now?" "Because I heard through my network that you're making moves on Skystar stock." His directness caught Maya off guard. "And I want to help." Maya's expression revealed nothing as she evaluated this offer. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Partnership," Thomas replied without hesitation. "My capital combined with your company's assets and strategic position. Together we could secure controlling interest in Hartford Capital Group within weeks rather than months." Maya leaned back, considering. "And what would you want in return?" "A seat on the board, input on the reformation of company culture, and a reasonable return on investment." He paused. "And the satisfaction of seeing William Hartford III face consequences for once in his privileged life." For the next hour, they discussed terms, strategy, and vision. Thomas's resources were substantial, his knowledge of Skystar's vulnerabilities detailed, and his commitment to systemic change appeared genuine. By the time their entrees arrived, Maya was cautiously convinced of his sincerity. "I'll have my team draft partnership terms," she concluded. "But time is of the essence. Hartford won't remain oblivious to our moves for long." As if summoned by her words, Maya's phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She excused herself and stepped away from the table. "Maya Reynolds," she answered. "Ms. Reynolds, this is Jeffrey Palmer from Stanton and Palmer. Representing Skystar Airlines and Hartford Capital Group, came a clipped, formal voice. I'm calling to inform you that any public statement suggesting systematic discrimination at Skystar constitute defamation. Furthermore, we've become aware of unusual trading activity in our client's stock that may constitute market manipulation when combined with your public allegations. Maya's grip tightened on her phone. Mr. Palmer, are you threatening me? I'm advising you that our clients will vigorously defend their reputation and shareholder interests. We strongly recommend you retract your unfounded claims and cease any coordinated stock activities immediately. I experienced discrimination firsthand, Mr. Palmer. There are multiple witnesses and video evidence. As for stock purchases, I'm merely a private investor recognizing value. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm in the middle of dinner. Maya ended the call and returned to the table, her resolve strengthened by Hartford's obvious concern. Hartford's lawyers? Thomas guessed, noting her expression. Maya nodded. They're getting nervous. Good. That means we accelerate. Thomas pulled out his phone. I have contacts at Mitsubishi Financial who were considering a rescue investment in Skystar's Trans-Pacific routes. They should hear our alternative proposal immediately. Over the next 2 hours, Maya and Thomas refined their strategy, identifying key investors to approach and vulnerabilities in Hartford's defense. Their alliance, born from shared indignation, was quickly evolving into a formidable force. Meanwhile, across town at Skystar headquarters, Captain Richard Whitfield shifted uncomfortably in the leather chair outside the HR director's office. Down the hall, flight attendant Brenda Wilson clutched a tissue, her career flashing before her eyes as she waited for her own meeting. Neither of them yet understood they were merely pawns in a much larger game that had just begun, one where Maya Reynolds and Thomas Blackwell were positioning themselves for checkmate. That evening, as Maya reviewed the formal partnership agreement Zara had drafted, her assistant Jordan rushed into her office. 2 Skystar board members reached out through back channels, he reported breathlessly. They want to meet privately. They're concerned about Hartford's leadership and the company's direction. Maya smiled. The first cracks were appearing in the foundation. Schedule it, she said calmly. And Jordan, order in dinner. We're going to be here all night. The morning headline of the Business Journal flashed across Maya's tablet. Hartford accuses tech CEO of vengeful market manipulation following discrimination claim. Accompanying the article was an unflattering photo of Maya from years ago, looking harried and unprofessional, clearly dug up to undermine her credibility. They're fighting back, Zara observed, reviewing the article in Maya's office. And they're getting personal. It was inevitable, Maya replied, scrolling through the piece. William Hartford III had given an exclusive interview, portraying himself as the victim of a calculated attack on his family's business. He characterized Maya as an opportunistic investor, exploiting a minor customer service misunderstanding. More troubling were the insinuations about Reynolds Security Solutions, suggesting the company had exaggerated its cybersecurity capabilities and failed to prevent several recent high-profile breaches for clients. The allegations were carefully worded to avoid outright defamation while planting seeds of doubt. They're targeting your clients, Zara noted grimly. Hartford must have connections at Glendale Insurance. They just happened to mention your firm lost their contract last quarter. We didn't lose it. We declined to renew because their internal practices created security vulnerabilities they refused to address, Maya corrected, though she knew the distinction would be lost in the public narrative. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Bradford Technology CEO called, concerned about media allegations. Wants reassurance our acquisition moves won't impact their security implementation. Before Maya could respond, Jordan appeared at her door. 3 more client calls holding. The Washington Post is requesting comment on Hartford's claims that you're using racial allegations as a smokescreen for a hostile takeover. And there's a tabloid piece running about your childhood in South Atlanta. Maya's jaw tightened. She had worked hard to keep her difficult upbringing private. The housing project where she'd grown up, her mother's struggles with addiction, the scholarship that had been her escape route. None of it was shameful, but it was hers to share or withhold, as she chose. They're trying to distract us and force us to play defense, Maya assessed. Zara, file for an emergency injunction against the most damaging false claims. Jordan, set up a call with our top 10 clients to reassure them directly. And get Thomas on the line. We need to push back strategically. Within hours, the battle had intensified on multiple fronts. While Maya's legal team fought the defamation in court, Thomas Blackwell was experiencing his own backlash. My partners at Elevation Capital are questioning my involvement, he informed Maya during their emergency strategy call. Hartford has friends on their board. They're suggesting my judgment is compromised by personal feelings about my daughter's experience. Are you wavering? Maya asked directly. Not a chance, Thomas replied firmly. But we need to change the narrative. Playing defense won't work. Maya nodded, though he couldn't see it through the phone. It's time to release some of our evidence. By afternoon, selected portions of Thomas's research began appearing in business publications and social media. Internal Skystar emails showing customer complaints about discrimination being routinely dismissed, statistics on the airline's hiring and promotion patterns revealing stark disparities, testimonials from former employees about unwritten policies regarding treatment of minority passengers in premium cabins. The response was immediate and powerful. Former Skystar diversity officer Imani Johnson, who had been fired after raising concerns about company culture, gave an explosive interview detailing how her recommendations had been systematically ignored and how she'd been marginalized for advocating change. Skystar and the discrimination airlines trended nationally. The company's stock dropped another 12% before trading was temporarily halted. Then came Hartford's desperate countermove. Maya's team intercepted information that Skystar was in rush negotiations to sell to Continental Airways, a friendly corporation that would preserve the current management structure and effectively block any takeover attempt. They're trying to sell before we can buy, Marcus reported during an emergency meeting. Continental has submitted a letter of intent. They're moving to close within 72 hours. Maya's team worked through the night to block the maneuver, filing regulatory objections and reaching out to Continental's board members with evidence of the liabilities they would be acquiring. Jordan, running on coffee and determination, discovered critical information in Hartford's transportation regulatory filings. There were safety violations that were covered up, he reported, placing the documents on Maya's desk at 3 a.m. Hartford personally intervened to have the reports modified. If the Federal Transportation Authority knew about this, Maya immediately contacted her regulatory affairs consultant, a former FTA commissioner. By dawn, the FTA had announced a special investigation into Skystar's compliance and safety records. Continental Airways abruptly withdrew their purchase offer. As the sun rose on the third day of the battle, Maya received a call from a number she didn't recognize. When she answered, the voice on the other end was both familiar and surprising. Ms. Reynolds, William Hartford. The airline CEO's tone was strained but cordial. I think it's time we spoke directly, one business leader to another. Maya's grip tightened on her phone. I'm listening. This situation has escalated unnecessarily, Hartford said, his practiced charm evident even through the phone. We both know how these media storms work. Facts get distorted. Emotions run high. I'd like to propose a resolution that benefits everyone. What did you have in mind? Maya asked neutrally. Skystar is prepared to offer you a substantial settlement for your unfortunate experience, a public apology, and a seat on our board to help guide our diversity initiatives moving forward. His tone suggested he was bestowing a great honor. In return, you would cease your current market activities and make a joint statement with me about our shared commitment to improvement. Maya let the silence stretch for several seconds before responding. Mr. Hartford, I appreciate your call, but this isn't about money. It's about accountability. Everyone has a price, Ms. Reynolds, Hartford replied, his charm slipping slightly. Name yours. That's where you're mistaken, Maya said calmly. Some things can't be bought. Dignity is one of them. Systemic change is another. Don't be naive, Hartford's voice hardened. You're playing a game with rules you don't understand against people who've been winning for generations. Perhaps that's exactly why the rules need to change, Maya replied. Goodbye, Mr. Hartford. As she ended the call, Maya felt a renewed clarity of purpose. Hartford had revealed his fundamental misunderstanding of her motivation. He believed this was a negotiation, when in fact it was a reckoning. She turned to find Jordan standing in her doorway, his expression tense. "What is it?" she asked. "Our primary financing bank just called. They're withdrawing their commitment letter for the acquisition funding." He swallowed hard. Hartford got to them. Maya absorbed this setback, her mind already racing toward alternatives. "Contact the Urban Investment Coalition. Tell them I need to meet with their leadership today." "The minority-owned banking consortium? But they don't have the capacity for this scale of—" "They will if they form a syndicate," Maya interrupted, "and they'll understand exactly why this matters beyond the balance sheet." By sunset, Maya had secured alternate financing through an unprecedented coalition of minority-owned financial institutions, each contributing what they could to a syndicated loan structure. The terms were less favorable than her original bank had offered, but the capital would be there when needed. As she finally returned to her apartment that night, exhausted but undeterred, Maya reflected on how quickly a simple airplane seat had transformed into something far more significant. This was no longer just about her experience or even about Skystar Airlines. It had become about challenging a system that had operated unchecked for too long. Tomorrow would bring new battles. Hartford would not surrender his family legacy without using every weapon at his disposal. But for the first time since this began, Maya was certain of one thing. She would not be the one removed from her seat this time. The conference room at Reynolds Security Solutions had transformed into a war room. Digital dashboards displayed Skystar's stock performance, media sentiment analysis, and acquisition progress in real time. Zara's legal team occupied one end of the long table, while financial analysts and strategists filled the other. At the center, Maya and Thomas reviewed documents that had just arrived via secure courier. These were extracted from Skystar's document retention system by a whistleblower, Thomas explained, his voice low despite their privacy. They were scheduled for deletion tomorrow. Maya scanned the internal emails, her expression darkening. With each page, the correspondence, primarily between William Hartford III and his executive team, revealed a corporate culture far more toxic than even she had suspected. "Look at this," she said, pointing to an email from Hartford to his VP of Customer Experience. He specifically instructs them to maintain the premium experience by ensuring the right demographic balance in first class. The right demographic? Balancecom, that's corporate speak for discrimination. Thomas nodded grimly. And here, he's responding to diversity hiring goals by asking, how many of these people do we actually need to hire to keep the government off our backs? The documentation was comprehensive and damning. Hartford had not only known about discriminatory practices, he had directed them, creating unwritten policies that filtered down through the organization while maintaining plausible deniability. There's a pattern to their promotion denials too, noted Vivian Chen, reviewing another file. Qualified minority candidates consistently passed over with identical language in their rejection notices. Maya turned to Zara. Is this enough for the federal discrimination investigation? More than enough, Zara confirmed. This establishes that the discrimination was systematic and directed from leadership. The question is how to use it strategically. We need to be careful, Thomas warned. If we just leak this to the press, Hartford could claim the documents are fabricated or taken out of context. We need official validation. Maya considered their options. We take it to the federal investigators first. Let them authenticate the documents and incorporate them into their official investigation. As her team began preparing the evidence for submission, Maya's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. This is Brenda Wilson, flight attendant from Skystar 2887. Need to talk privately. Important information. Maya showed the message to Thomas and Zara. It could be a trap, Zara cautioned. Hartford trying to get you to say something they could use against you. Or she could be another potential whistleblower, Thomas countered. Either way, we should hear what she has to say. Maya agreed to meet Brenda at a public cafe near Centennial Park, with Zara at a nearby table and security personnel stationed discreetly throughout the venue. When Brenda arrived, she looked nothing like the confident flight attendant who had questioned Maya's right to sit in first class. Her uniform was replaced by casual clothes, her professional makeup absent, and her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her purse. "Thank you for meeting me," Brenda began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to apologize for what happened on that flight." Maya's expression remained neutral. "I appreciate that, but I'm more interested in why it happened." Brenda glanced around nervously before leaning forward. "We were trained to do it. Not officially, not in writing, but the message was clear. Profile and protect, they called it, making sure first class maintained its expected atmosphere. Meaning keeping people who look like me out," Maya stated flatly. Brenda nodded, shame evident in her expression. "There were incentives, better routes, schedule preferences for those who maintained standards. Captain Whitfield was the worst. He would check the first-class manifest before every flight and make comments about maintaining the Skystar experience." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because they're making me the scapegoat," Brenda replied, her voice breaking slightly. "HR called me in yesterday. They're building a case to fire me for failure to follow customer service protocols. They're saying I acted alone against company policy." Maya studied the woman across from her. "Do you have documentation? Anything proving these directions came from above?" "Some. Training materials with coded language about passenger compatibility and maintaining cabin harmony. Text messages from supervisors. And I recorded my meeting with HR yesterday when they tried to make me sign a statement taking full responsibility." This was exactly the kind of corroborating evidence they needed. Proof that Maya's experience wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a systematic pattern directed from the highest levels. "I was wrong," Brenda admitted quietly. "Not just on that flight, but every time I went along with it. I told myself I was just doing my job, but..." She trailed off. Maya felt an unexpected complexity of emotions. This woman had been the face of her humiliation, but she was also, in many ways, another victim of Hartford's toxic culture. "Ms. Wilson," Maya said carefully, "would you be willing to provide a formal statement to federal investigators about these practices?" Brenda hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Yes, it's time someone stood up to them." As Maya left the meeting, she reflected on how the narrative was evolving. What had begun as her personal experience of discrimination was revealing itself as something much more pervasive, a corporate culture built on exclusion and prejudice, where employees were incentivized to discriminate and punished for inclusivity. Back at headquarters, Thomas was waiting with more developments. "We've found financial connections between Hartford and Senator Whitman," he reported, referring to a powerful legislator who had repeatedly blocked airline industry diversity requirements. Campaign contributions through multiple shell companies, a vacation property jointly owned through LLCs, and Hartford's daughter interned in his office. The pieces were coming together, not just Skystar's discriminatory practices, but the broader system that enabled them. Maya immediately forwarded this information to their contacts at the federal investigation team. Later that afternoon, a troubling report reached Maya's team. Sources at Skystar suggested Hartford was considering filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection to prevent the takeover. "It's a desperate move," Marcus assessed. "They'd still need court approval for any reorganization plan, and creditors would have significant say. But it could delay us long enough for Hartford to find another exit strategy," Maya pointed out. She quickly convened a team to develop contingencies for the bankruptcy scenario, working with bankruptcy specialists to prepare for every possible maneuver Hartford might attempt. Meanwhile, Thomas implemented another key element of their strategy, reaching out directly to Skystar employees with reassurances about job security post-acquisition. "Hartford's trying to frighten staff with claims that we'll slash jobs," Thomas explained. "We need to counter that narrative." Maya recorded a video message for Skystar employees, explaining her vision for the company's future. "This isn't about dismantling Skystar, but rebuilding it on a foundation of excellence and equality. Our issue is with leadership and culture, not with the dedicated professionals who keep the airline running every day." The message, distributed through employee networks, began shifting internal sentiment. By evening, Maya was receiving messages of support from SkyStar staff at all levels. As the critical shareholders meeting approached, all the elements of Maya and Thomas's strategy were falling into place. The federal investigation was proceeding with the evidence they had provided. The alternative financing was secured. The public narrative had shifted decisively against Hartford. And perhaps most importantly, they had assembled the shareholder votes needed for a narrow but decisive victory. What would you do if you discovered a company's leadership was deliberately promoting discrimination? Comment number 1 if you would publicly expose them immediately, or number 2 if you would build a strategic case like Maya. If you're impressed by how Maya is handling this situation, hit that like button to show your support. Do you think Brenda deserves a second chance? Or should Maya replace all staff involved in discrimination? How far should companies go to transform toxic cultures? Subscribe to see how Maya handles the confrontation with Hartford in the next part of this incredible story. The morning of the SkyStar emergency shareholders meeting dawned clear and bright, contrasting sharply with the storm brewing inside the company's gleaming headquarters. Maya arrived flanked by Thomas, Zara, and a team of legal and financial advisors. Security personnel eyed them warily as they approached the reception desk. Maya Reynolds and associates for the shareholders meeting, Maya stated calmly. The receptionist glanced nervously toward a man in a dark suit who stood nearby, clearly awaiting their arrival. He stepped forward with a forced smile. Ms. Reynolds, I'm Robert Townsend, SkyStar's corporate secretary. I must inform you that this meeting is for verified shareholders only. How fortunate that we qualify, Zara replied, presenting documentation of their stock ownership and proxy voting rights. As holders of 22% of outstanding shares and representatives for an additional 31% through proxy, we'll need seating for our entire team. Townsend's smile faltered as he reviewed the paperwork. There appears to be some confusion about the proxy submissions. Perhaps we should discuss this privately before. There's no confusion, Mr. Townsend, Thomas interrupted firmly. The proxies were properly filed and acknowledged by your office last week. Any attempt to block legitimate shareholder representation would constitute securities fraud. After several tense minutes and hushed phone consultations, Townsend reluctantly led them to the boardroom where the meeting would take place. As they entered, the tension in the air was palpable. Board members and executives clustered in small groups, conversations halting as Maya and her team appeared. William Hartford, third, sat at the head of the long mahogany table, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his expression a mask of practiced confidence. Only the slight tightening of his jaw betrayed his recognition of Maya. Beside him sat his son, William IV, and several other executives Maya recognized from her research. Ms. Reynolds, Hartford acknowledged with a curt nod. I see you've brought an entourage. Mr. Hartford, Maya returned evenly, thank you for accommodating us. As other shareholders and representatives filed in, the room quickly divided into clear factions. Hartford's traditional allies, mostly older men from connected families and companies, gathered near his end of the table. Independent shareholders and institutional investors positioned themselves in the middle, while Maya's coalition took positions at the opposite end. The meeting began with formal procedures, roll calls, and verification of stock ownership. Throughout these preliminaries, Hartford maintained an air of confident control, though Maya noticed him repeatedly glancing at a tablet where vote tallies were presumably being updated in real time. When the time came to address the core issue, the no confidence vote in current management and the proposed change in controlling interest, Hartford rose to speak first. Distinguished shareholders and board members, he began, his voice resonating with practiced authority. We face an unprecedented attempt to seize control of this company through manipulation of public sentiment and exploitation of a single customer service incident. He paced slowly, making eye contact with key shareholders. SkyStar Airlines has been a cornerstone of American aviation for 70 years. The Hartford family has safely carried millions of passengers through war, recession, and industry upheaval. We have remained independent when others sold out, committed to quality when others cut corners. His gaze settled on Maya. Ms. Reynolds experienced a regrettable misunderstanding on one of our flights. For that, We have apologized and offered generous compensation. But make no mistake, this takeover attempt is not about improving our company or addressing legitimate concerns. It is a calculated financial maneuver wrapped in social justice rhetoric. Several of Hartford's allies nodded in agreement. Hartford continued, his voice rising passionately. What does a cybersecurity executive know about running an airline? What experience does Ms. Reynolds have managing a company with 12,000 employees and a fleet of 137 aircraft? This is not about creating value for shareholders or improving service for customers. This is about revenge, pure and simple. He returned to his seat at the head of the table, gesturing expansively. The Hartford family built this airline from nothing. We weathered the Great Depression, fuel crises, and terrorist attacks. We have given our lives to this company and this industry. I ask you today to stand with us against this opportunistic attack on our legacy. Murmurs filled the room as Hartford concluded. Maya could see uncertainty in the faces of some independent shareholders. She rose calmly, straightening her jacket as she moved to the position Hartford had just vacated. Thank you, Mr. Hartford, for that impassioned defense of your family's legacy, she began, her voice clear and measured. Legacy is indeed important. It's what we leave behind, how we'll be remembered, the values we've stood for. She paused, looking around the room. The question before us today isn't about erasing SkyStar's history. It's about honestly confronting that history, including its darker chapters, and charting a better course for its future. Maya opened a folder and removed several documents. You've heard Mr. Hartford dismiss my experience as a single customer service incident. But the evidence tells a different story. She displayed the first document on the room's presentation screen, a statistical analysis of customer complaints by demographic group. SkyStar receives 400% more discrimination complaints than the industry average. Black first class. Passengers are 17 times more likely to be questioned about their seating assignments than white passengers. She advanced to the next slide, internal emails with certain passages highlighted. These communications from Mr. Hartford himself direct staff to maintain what he calls passenger demographic balance in premium cabins. When asked to clarify this policy, he wrote, and I quote, "Some passengers simply don't feel comfortable with too much diversity in the premium experience." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Hartford's face flushed red. "This is outrageous," he interrupted. "Those emails are taken completely out of context." "The context is quite clear, Mr. Hartford," Maya replied calmly, "as is the pattern they establish." She continued presenting evidence, testimony from former employees about systematic discrimination, financial data showing declining performance under current management, and safety violations that had been concealed from regulators. The issues at SkyStar go far beyond a single incident, Maya explained. They reflect fundamental failures of leadership, ethics, and business judgment. The company's financial performance has declined for 12 consecutive quarters under current management. Customer satisfaction ratings have fallen to the bottom quartile of the industry. Employee turnover is at a record high. She turned to face Hartford directly. "This isn't about revenge, Mr. Hartford. It's about recognizing that your leadership is failing this company by every measurable standard." Hartford's composure cracked. "Who do you think you are?" he demanded, rising from his seat. "You come in here with your diversity agenda and your social justice warrior mentality, trying to tell me how to run the company my grandfather founded?" A uncomfortable silence fell over the room at his outburst. Hartford seemed to realize his error too late, attempting to regain his professional demeanor. "What I mean is," he backpedaled, "Ms. Reynolds lacks the industry-specific knowledge to recognize discrimination when I experience it," Maya interrupted. "To identify toxic leadership when I see it? To understand that a company culture flows from the top down?" She turned back to the shareholders. "Mr. Hartford is right about one thing. I don't have 70 years of airline experience. I bring fresh perspective, technological innovation, and a commitment to excellence that transcends industry boundaries." Thomas Blackwell stood to join her. "And she's not alone. Our leadership team combines aviation experts, customer experience, innovators, and financial specialists with proven track records of turning around underperforming companies." Maya resumed her presentation, outlining their detailed plan for SkyStar's future. Modernized systems, improved employee training and retention, expanded routes, and a revitalized brand built on inclusive excellence. As she concluded, an institutional investor who had remained silent throughout the proceedings raised his hand. Harold Chen, representing Pacific Investment Group, controlled a significant block of shares that neither side had definitively secured. "Ms. Reynolds," he began thoughtfully, "your presentation is compelling, but substantial change always carries risk. Why should we believe your team can execute this ambitious vision?" Maya had anticipated this crucial question. "Because we already have," she replied confidently. Reynolds Security Solutions faced similar challenges when we expanded into government contracting 5 years ago. Entrenched competitors, resistant bureaucracy, outdated systems. We succeeded by combining respect for institutional knowledge with the courage to challenge flawed practices. She displayed performance metrics from her company's transformation. We retained 87% of staff through the transition while improving productivity by 34%. We can apply these same principles at SkyStar, preserving what works while fixing what doesn't. Chen nodded slowly, making notes. After a few more questions from shareholders, the room fell silent as the vote was called. Electronic voting began, with real-time results tabulated on a secured system. The minutes stretched painfully as the votes were tallied and verified. Maya maintained her composed exterior while her heart raced. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. Finally, the corporate secretary rose. "The final vote. Tally on the motion of no confidence in current management and approval of the proposed change in controlling interest is as follows." The room held its collective breath. In favor, 52.7%. Opposed, 47.3%. The motion passes. For a moment, the room remained completely silent as the implications registered. Then Hartford slammed his fist on the table. "This is not over," he declared, his voice shaking with anger. "I'll challenge this vote. I'll take this to every court in the land if necessary." "That's your right, Mr. Hartford," Maya acknowledged calmly. "But as of this moment, control of this company has legally transferred to the new shareholder coalition. Any interference with that transition would violate corporate governance regulations." Hartford rose, leaning toward Maya with barely contained fury. "You have no idea what you've done," he hissed, low enough that only those nearby could hear. "You think you can just walk in and take what my family built? You'll regret this." Security personnel shifted uncomfortably, uncertain whose orders they should now follow. Maya addressed the tension directly. "Mr. Hartford, this transition can be professional and dignified, or it can be unnecessarily contentious. The choice is yours, but the outcome remains the same." For a terrible moment, it seemed Hartford might escalate further. Then his son touched his arm gently, whispering something in his ear. The older man's shoulders sagged almost imperceptibly before he straightened again, gathering his dignity around him like armor. "I'll expect my attorneys to be contacted regarding the transition," he said stiffly before turning to leave the boardroom. As the door closed behind him, the atmosphere in the room transformed. Board members who had been silent throughout the proceedings now approached Maya and Thomas to introduce themselves. Employees who had observed from the periphery exchanged hopeful glances. Maya allowed herself one brief moment of satisfaction before turning to the task at hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," she addressed the remaining attendees, "we have a lot of work to do. I suggest we begin immediately." Within hours, transition teams were in place throughout SkyStar's headquarters. As Maya walked through the offices, she felt the weight of 12,000 livelihoods now connected to her decisions. The victory was just the beginning. The real challenge, transforming a company's culture while preserving its strengths, still lay ahead. That evening, as Maya prepared to address SkyStar employees via livestream, she received a text from Jordan. "Brenda Wilson is waiting in the lobby. Says she wants to help with the training reforms." Maya smiled slightly. From first-class confrontation to company-wide transformation in less than a week, a journey neither she nor Brenda could have imagined when their paths first crossed. "Send her up," Maya replied. "We need everyone who believes in what we're building, Maya's first week as controlling shareholder of Skystar Airlines unfolded in a whirlwind of 18-hour days, emergency meetings, and critical decisions that would shape the company's future. She established temporary headquarters in a conference room on the executive floor, walls covered with organizational charts, performance metrics, and transition timelines. "We need to stabilize operations first," Maya instructed her leadership team during their dawn meeting. "Passengers shouldn't feel disruption during the transition. Then we address the culture, systems, and brand, in that order." Department. Heads filed in throughout the morning, many appearing apprehensive about meeting their new leader. Maya made a point of listening more than speaking in these initial interactions, identifying which executives were open to change and which were entrenched in Hartford's way of thinking. "The flight operations team is solid," Thomas reported after his meetings. "They're focused on safety and efficiency, mostly untouched by the cultural issues. Customer service and booking systems are where the discriminatory practices were most entrenched." Maya nodded. "We'll need an all-hands meeting as soon as possible. People are anxious and rumors are spreading." By noon, Maya stood on a makeshift stage in the company's largest hangar, surrounded by hundreds of employees while thousands more watched via live stream. The atmosphere crackled with uncertainty and hope in equal measure. "I know many of you are wondering what happens next," Maya began, her voice echoing through the cavernous space. "Let me start by addressing your most immediate concern: your jobs." She paused, making eye contact with the maintenance workers, flight attendants, and office staff nearest to her. Skystar employs 12,000 talented professionals who keep this airline running safely and efficiently every day. You are this company's greatest asset, not its problem. Our issue was with leadership and culture, not with you. Visible relief rippled through the crowd. "That said, changes are coming," Maya continued. "Starting today, we're implementing a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind against passengers or fellow employees. Every complaint will be taken seriously, investigated thoroughly, and addressed appropriately." She outlined the other immediate changes: an independent review board for past discrimination complaints, revised training for customer-facing staff, and a confidential channel for employees to report concerns. "I'm not here to punish people for following directions they were given," Maya emphasized. "I'm here to change those directions and create a company where excellence and equality go hand in hand." As the meeting concluded, Maya noticed both tears and smiles among the assembled staff. Change was always difficult, but for many, it appeared to be welcome. Later that afternoon, word reached Maya that Captain Richard Whitfield had submitted his resignation rather than face review of his conduct. She wasn't surprised. Men like Whitfield rarely adapted well to accountability after years of unchecked authority. More unexpected was Brenda Wilson's request for a meeting. Maya had assumed Brenda would simply accept the severance package offered to employees who preferred not to remain under new management. "Ms. Reynolds," Brenda began tentatively when they met in Maya's temporary office, "I expected to be fired immediately." "That would be the easy decision," Maya acknowledged, "but not necessarily the right one." Brenda's hands twisted nervously in her lap. "What happened on that flight? I've had a lot of time to think about it. I was wrong, but I was also following what I'd been taught was company policy." "Unofficial policy," Maya corrected. "Yes," Brenda admitted. "We never saw it in writing, but the message was clear in training, in which employees received praise and promotions, in the coded language supervisors used." Maya studied the woman carefully. "Why are you here, Ms. Wilson?" "Because I want to help fix it," Brenda replied, meeting Maya's gaze directly for the first time. "I know the training inside and out, where the problematic elements are embedded, how the biases are reinforced. I can help identify every aspect that needs to change." Maya considered the proposal. There was poetic justice in having the flight attendant who had challenged her first-class ticket now working to prevent such incidents in the future. More practically, Brenda's insider knowledge could accelerate the reform process. "You'll work with our training revision team," Maya decided. 3-month probationary period. "Your insights will be valuable, but your actions moving forward will determine your future with this company." Brenda nodded, relief evident in her expression. "Thank you for the second chance. I won't waste it." As Brenda left, Thomas entered, with updates from the financial team. The market's responding positively. Stocks up 16% since the takeover. Analysts are cautiously optimistic about our turnaround plan. "And Hartford?" Maya asked. "Lawyering up as expected, but our position is legally solid. His more concerning move is a media offensive. He gave an inflammatory interview calling the takeover reverse racism and suggesting we'll implement hiring quotas that compromise safety." Maya shook her head. "We won't dignify that with a direct response. Our actions and results will speak louder than his accusations." In the days that followed, Maya implemented a methodical transformation strategy. Rather than making sweeping changes all at once, she focused on gathering data and understanding the organization from the ground up. To truly comprehend the passenger experience, Maya booked a Skystar flight incognito, traveling in both economy and first class to observe staff behaviors and systems firsthand. What she witnessed confirmed the scope of the challenge ahead. Subtle biases embedded in seemingly neutral procedures, from how upgrades were processed to how passenger complaints were handled. Following this experience, Maya invited former customers who had filed discrimination complaints to headquarters, personally apologizing and soliciting their input on concrete improvements. These conversations led to immediate changes in booking, systems, and seat assignment protocols. "The issue isn't just explicit discrimination," Maya explained to her team after these meetings. "It's also the invisible barriers built into our systems. The algorithm for upgrades was weighted against certain zip codes where minorities predominantly live. The dress code enforcement guidelines included subjective terms that were disproportionately applied to non-white passengers. As these systemic issues were addressed, Maya implemented a recognition program highlighting employees who exemplified inclusive service excellence. To her satisfaction, nominations flooded in, revealing many staff members who had been quietly providing outstanding service to all passengers despite the previous culture. The regulatory investigation initiated before the takeover continued, with Maya's team providing unprecedented transparency and cooperation. Investigators expressed surprise at the thoroughness of the internal audit and the concrete reforms already implemented. "We're not just settling lawsuits with money," Maya instructed Zara when addressing pending discrimination cases. "Each settlement includes specific commitments to structural changes, with benchmarks and verification mechanisms." This approach earned praise from civil rights organizations that had previously criticized the airline, generating positive press that began to reshape public perception of the company. 6 weeks into the transition, Maya's financial team made a troubling discovery while reviewing the company's books. The Hartford family had been siphoning corporate funds through inflated consulting contracts with other family-owned entities. The amounts involved were substantial enough to constitute fraud. Maya faced a difficult decision. Exposing these activities would strengthen their legal position against Hartford's continuing challenges to the takeover, but it could also damage the airline's reputation further and potentially trigger criminal investigations. She convened her leadership team to discuss the implications. "This isn't just about Hartford anymore," Maya noted. "It's about our responsibility to shareholders, employees, and customers." After hours of debate, they reached a nuanced approach. They would address the financial improprieties through civil remedies and governance reforms, while cooperating with regulatory authorities as required by law. The focus would remain on moving the company forward, rather than pursuing retribution against former executives. "We'll hold them accountable without becoming distracted from our primary mission," Maya concluded. "This company needs to look forward, not backward." As the 90-day mark of the transition approached, tangible improvements were evident throughout the organization. Customer complaint rates had declined by 34%. Employee retention had stabilized after an initial wave of departures. On-time performance had improved as staff morale lifted. Maya's daily routine now included regular walks through different departments, engaging directly with employees at all levels. During one such walk through the reservation center, she overheard a customer service representative skillfully handling a complex situation involving a passenger with special needs. "That was impressive," Maya commented after the call concluded. The representative, initially flustered at being addressed by the new owner, smiled tentatively. It's easier now that we have clear guidelines focused on helping people instead of just following rigid rules. And knowing we'll be backed up by management if we make reasonable accommodations. That makes all the difference. This simple exchange, more than the improving financial metrics or positive press, confirmed for Maya that real transformation was taking root. The culture was shifting from one of rigid hierarchy and hidden biases to one of empowered employees focused on genuine service. As she returned to her office that evening, Maya found Jordan waiting with the latest customer satisfaction reports. For the first time in 5 years, Skystar's ratings had moved out of the bottom quartile. It's just the beginning, Maya acknowledged, but it's a meaningful beginning. She looked out her office window at the aircraft on the tarmac below, their Skystar logos gleaming in the setting sun. Soon those logos would change as part of the company's rebranding initiative. But the more important changes were already happening. Inside the operation, invisible but fundamental shifts in how people were treated, valued, and served. The confrontation that had begun with a denied seat in first class was evolving into something Maya hadn't fully anticipated. A case study in how corporate culture could be transformed when leadership truly committed to both excellence and equality. There would be setbacks and resistance ahead, but the direction was clear and the momentum building. That night, as Maya finally left headquarters, she passed the wall where photographs of company leaders hung in chronological order. William, Hartford III's portrait had been removed, leaving a conspicuous empty space. Soon, her own image would hang there. The first woman, the first person of color, to lead the company in its 70-year history. But more important than who she was, Maya reflected, would be what she built. An airline where everyone could truly expect first-class treatment. 6 months after the takeover, the hangar that had hosted Maya's first all-hands meeting was transformed for a very different occasion. Gone was the anxious atmosphere of uncertainty. In its place, a sense of celebration and renewal filled the massive space, now decorated with the new colors and logo of Horizon Airlines, the reborn identity of what had once been Skystar. Employees in freshly designed uniforms mingled with media representatives, business partners, and community leaders. A gleaming Boeing 787 displayed the new livery, a gradient of blue and purple with a stylized horizon line that subtly incorporated elements of diverse cultural patterns from around the world. Maya stood at the podium, surveying the gathering, with quiet satisfaction. Beside her waited Thomas Blackwell, Brenda Wilson, now head of customer experience, and other key members of the leadership team that had guided the company's transformation. 6 months ago, we began a journey together, Maya addressed the assembled crowd. A journey to create an airline where excellence means excellence for everyone, passengers and employees alike. She gestured toward the statistical displays surrounding the hangar. The numbers tell part of our story. On-time performance improved by 23%. Customer satisfaction ratings increased by 41%. Employee retention is at its highest level in a decade. And yes, our stock value has grown by 67%. Applause rippled through the audience. Maya raised her hand. But the most important changes can't be captured in statistics. They're found in the thousands of daily interactions where respect has replaced suspicion, where inclusion has replaced exclusion, where every passenger knows they belong in whatever seat they've purchased. She introduced Brenda to the podium. Many in the audience recognized her from the viral video that had started this journey, though few outside the company knew how central she had become to the transformation. When I first met Ms. Reynolds, it was under circumstances I'm not proud of, Brenda began candidly. I was enforcing unwritten rules that should never have existed. Today I'm proud to introduce the completely redesigned Horizon Airlines service standards and training program. Brenda outlined the new approach, which had already been recognized by industry publications as a potential new gold standard. The program emphasized cultural competence, problem-solving flexibility, and genuine hospitality toward all passengers. We've eliminated subjective enforcement criteria. We've implemented accountability at every level. And most importantly, we've created an environment where treating people with dignity isn't just permitted, it's expected and rewarded. As Brenda concluded her presentation, Thomas Blackwell stepped forward to share financial and operational updates. The company's performance had exceeded even the most optimistic projections in their initial takeover plan. More significantly, minority hiring and promotion rates showed dramatic improvement, creating a leadership pipeline that better reflected the diverse customers the airline served. "We're proving what should have been obvious all along," Thomas noted. "Diversity and inclusion aren't just moral imperatives, they're business advantages. Our more diverse leadership team is making better decisions, connecting with broader customer bases, and identifying opportunities our predecessors missed entirely." The formal presentations concluded with Maya announcing a new initiative that held special meaning for her: the Horizon Futures Program, a scholarship and mentorship initiative for underrepresented groups in aviation. The program would provide financial support, internships, and career development for students pursuing careers as pilots, engineers, and aviation executives. "The first 20 Horizon Futures scholars are here with us today," Maya announced, gesturing to a group of young people standing together near the front. "They represent the future of this industry, a future that must be as diverse as the world we serve." As the ceremonial portion of the event transitioned to a reception, Maya circulated among the guests, accepting congratulations, but mainly listening to employees share stories about the changes they'd experienced. One conversation particularly touched her: a veteran maintenance supervisor describing how his team's suggestions were finally being heard and implemented after years of being ignored under previous management. Later that afternoon, Maya slipped away from the main event to fulfill a personal commitment. At a small flight school near the airport, 20 teenage girls, most of them Black and Latina, waited eagerly for her arrival. These young women were part of a community program introducing girls to aviation careers, and Maya had promised to speak with them despite her packed schedule. "I never planned to run an airline," Maya admitted to the group after sharing her background in technology. "But sometimes life puts you in situations that reveal your purpose. What happened to me on that flight was unjust, but the response couldn't just be about one seat or one flight. It had to be about changing the system." A shy-looking girl raised her hand. "Ms. Reynolds, I decided I want to be a pilot after I saw your story on the news. My family said it wasn't realistic, but you made me think maybe it could happen." Maya felt unexpected emotion tighten her throat. "What's your name?" "Tiana," the girl replied. "Well, Tiana, I look forward to flying on your aircraft someday," Maya responded. "And I hope by then, no one will question whether you belong in the captain's seat." The following week, Maya attended her first annual shareholders meeting as Horizon's controlling investor. The contrast with the confrontational takeover meeting couldn't have been starker. Where tension and animosity had reigned, now there was confidence and optimism as record profits and satisfaction scores were presented. As the formal meeting concluded, Maya found herself reflecting on the improbable journey from humiliated passenger to industry leader. The transformation had required vision and persistence, but also the contributions of countless employees who had embraced the opportunity for change. For her final act of the day, Maya boarded the inaugural flight of Horizon's flagship route, the very same Atlanta to San Francisco route where she had been denied her seat 6 months earlier. This time she walked to first class without challenge, nodding to the flight attendants who greeted her with genuine smiles. As she settled into her window seat, she found an envelope tucked into the seat pocket before her. Inside was a handwritten note from Brenda. "Thank you for the opportunity to be part of building something better. This journey has transformed us all." The captain's voice came over the intercom, a woman whose warm, confident tone filled the cabin. "Welcome aboard Horizon Airlines Flight 101. I'm Captain Jasmine Washington, and I'll be flying you to San Francisco today." Maya smiled at the knowledge that Captain Washington was Horizon's first Black female captain, promoted from first officer during the reorganization after demonstrating exceptional skills that had been overlooked by previous management. As the aircraft taxied toward the runway, Maya glanced out the window at the Horizon Airlines logo now adorning the terminal. The company's transformation was far from complete, but its trajectory was firmly established. The scene shifted to the opening moment of our story, Maya facing William Hartford III across the boardroom table, ownership papers in hand. Now, with full context, her words carried their complete meaning. Today isn't about revenge. It's about transformation. After the shareholders' meeting, Maya had arranged one final meeting, inviting former CEO Hartford to witness the inaugural flight of the reformed airline. Most of her advisors thought she was crazy to extend the invitation, and few expected him to accept. But to everyone's surprise, he had appeared looking uncomfortable but present. "Why did you want me here?" he had asked suspiciously as they stood watching the aircraft preparations. "Because you should see what your airline can become," Maya had replied. "This was never about taking your seat, Mr. Hartford. It was about creating new ones for everyone who deserves them." As Horizon Flight 101 lifted into the clear blue sky, Maya Reynolds watched Atlanta recede below, the city where she had built her first company and now her second. The future stretched before her like the horizon itself, not a destination but a continuous journey toward what could be. Maya's journey teaches us that true justice often requires more than just individual redress. It demands systemic transformation. When faced with discrimination, she could have settled for compensation or legal victory, but she recognized that the problem was rooted in organizational culture and leadership. By acquiring the airline, Maya created lasting change that benefited thousands of employees and passengers. The story reminds us that accountability matters at every level. From flight attendants to CEOs, we all contribute to the environments we create. Brenda's evolution from enforcing discriminatory policies to helping reform them demonstrates that people can grow when given the opportunity and proper guidance. Perhaps most importantly, Maya's approach shows that business success and ethical leadership are not opposing forces. They're complementary. By building a more inclusive airline, she improved both moral standards and financial performance. Excellence and equality reinforced each other. The transformation of Skystar into Horizon Airlines stands as a powerful reminder that no discriminatory system is too entrenched to change when confronted with determined leadership, strategic thinking, and a clear moral vision. Sometimes the most effective response to injustice isn't just to claim your rightful seat, it's to rebuild the entire vehicle. What moment in Maya's journey resonated most with you? Was it her dignity when facing discrimination, her strategic brilliance in the boardroom, or her compassion in giving Brenda a second chance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe in creating a world where everyone receives first-class treatment regardless of their appearance, hit that subscribe button and join our community of storytellers and changemakers. Your like on this video helps spread Maya's powerful message to others who need to hear it. Thank you for joining us on this journey from injustice to transformation. Remember, sometimes the greatest changes begin with a single moment of standing your ground. Until next time, may you always find your rightful seat at the table, or better yet, build a bigger table for everyone.